Hello and welcome to Behind the Scenes, podcast for Out of Frame. I'm your host, Sean Malone, the creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education and creator of the Out of Frame show series on YouTube. Here with me today in studio, as usual, is Paul Nelson. Paul is our social media head and also the editor of Out of Frame Shorts. Thanks for being here, sir. And of course, Jen Mafasanti, robot on our left.
Genbot.
I think our left, Genbot here. Jen is the Director of Communications for the Libertas Institute in Utah, coming to us from not Salt Lake. Where are you guys actually at?
Lehi, Utah.
Lehi, Utah.
Ah, yes.
Where is that? I don't even know.
It's in the Salt Lake Valley. It's about halfway between Salt Lake City and Provo.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, every photo I've seen looks very, very nice. So
it's gorgeous out here.
You guys are, I feel like, getting away from the snow finally, too, which is going to be exciting.
Finally, yeah. Although I will say it did snow up in the mountains on Sunday evening.
Well,
Ooh, a little fresh powder.
a little fresh powder. Get out there.
Shred some of that powder.
Shred it up. No, So I've never skied.
No,
I've never done. So I grew up in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Not a lot of skiing.
Cross country skiing.
Yeah, there's some of that, but that's a hard no.
No, that's
pretty much
skiing
everything.
for when you hate yourself.
That feels like that's correct. What happened was one time when I think I was in college, my family did Christmas in Yellowstone, which was awesome. But my dad and I both got really sick. And so we pretty much spent our entire time just hanging out at the fire, around the fire at the lodge, like the mid sort of like big like community fire thing that they do. And it was awesome. And we just read books and just lounged and had people bring us hot chocolate and didn't feel that great, but like it was awesome. And my brother and my mom went to try to do cross country skiing.
Bad idea.
And that when they came back, they were angry and exhausted. And I just looked at my dad and I was like, I think we made the right call here.
Yeah.
Like much more enjoyable time that we had. But I didn't really grow up with it, so I don't really know the winter sports very well. It's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, you were in Kansas.
You make the 7-hour trek out to the Rockies and
I mean, I knew
hit
a
the
lot
slopes.
of people who did.
Yeah, I've skied a few times. I pretty much gave it up when I realized that I needed my legs to pay for college. Because as you guys probably are well aware, skiing is pretty dangerous and blown tendons and knees
and such.
Pretty easy to happen. So once I figured that I needed that part, that I just kind of gave it up. So I haven't gone since I've been in high school. So, but I loved it. It's fun.
I'm cool with I think I would go to Utah and just take photos of everything. I think that's kind of where I'd fall in. But man, I've been I did a thing on YouTube the other day. Well, it's a few weeks ago now at this point, I would say. But for the first time, I've always been kind of protective of Out of Frame and kind of. It's not that I'm not interested in people's recommendations or people's preferences as far as what shows or movies or whatever they want me to do episodes about, but it's hard. And and I've talked about this. I feel like I've talked about it on the show a little bit before, but it's hard because there's got to be sort of an intersection of something that is popular and that a lot of people care about, but also I have to care about it. Because I got to write about it, and I've got to think about it, and I've got to make points about it. I've got to understand it really well. And then also it's got to intersect with stuff that Fee cares about and ideas and values and stuff. So it's not just like I'm talking about anything in any context. So I'm not just doing movie reviews. So it's really tricky to find that balance. And so for the most part, I just watch a lot of stuff. I consume a lot of stuff, and I kind of see what appeals to me or what kind of pops up that I think is going to be interesting for the audience or whatever. But the other day, I put out a poll on YouTube, on the YouTube community thing, for because I get requests all the time for me to do anime shows. And I'm not a huge fan of anime in general. And I've watched some things. I've watched Cowboy Bebop, and I've watched, like recently I just got done
Pokemon?
watching what?
Pokemon.
No,
Sorry, I
I
just
never watched
triggered
Pokemon. Paul,
half
of
of our
course.
audience.
Well, that's the thing. I never watched. There are certain things I never watched. I never watched Naruto. I never watched like Dragon Ball Z. Like I didn't watch Pokemon. Wasn't into any of that kind of stuff. But I did. I do watch. Again, I mentioned Cowboy Bebop, but like I just got done watching Castlevania. Like I've watched, things like Neon Genesis Evangelion and those kinds of things. Ghost in the Shell. I've watched a good amount of that kind of stuff. And I like, there's a lot of, and there's certain movies and things that I really like. Akira, I mean, there are classics of the film side of that I think are great. And I've, watched a bunch of times and whatever. But I'm not really going out of my way for a lot of this stuff. But I put up this poll, and I just kind of pulled from a handful of things that people have recommended to me in the past. Code Geass, I don't know if I'm saying that right exactly. Death Note, people bring up all the time. Just a few things I put down. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood came up a lot in the comments, but the 5,000 people voted on this poll, and it had 500 comments on it. So I start reading through the comments, and I try to find commonalities and look at what people are really saying, because I don't know anything about this stuff, so I'm kind of looking for people's big recommendations. I put up another poll where I kind of narrowed down some of the top contenders from a lot of the comments and everything else, and another 5,000 people vote in this poll. Probably the same 5,000 people, if I'm being honest, but still, everybody cared, and we ended up with a plurality. I think a pretty strong one though. It was 40%.
Yeah.
For Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which people recommended to me as the anime that I should be watching, both to do an out of frame episode on, but also this should be the first one you work on. So I started watching Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood last night, and I'm not really into it yet. I'm only a couple episodes in. I was familiar with Fullmetal Alchemist, the original show. I probably watched a couple episodes of that, so I kind of know more or less the premise is that a kid does some alchemy that goes wrong and ends up losing he loses his arm and I think part of his leg, but his brother's soul is bonded to a suit of armor, and his brother loses his body outright. So a lot of the show is sort of built around him trying to get their bodies back, basically, fix what went wrong with that. But it's also a weird world where alchemists work for the army, and they go take down bad guys on behalf of the government and stuff. So I don't know. I'm not real far into the Brotherhood series that started in 2010. But I will say, did a lot of the anime stuff I don't love at the beginning. A lot of time in exposition at the beginning of the first episode. They reiterated who the Eldrick brothers were, these two kids. They said it maybe 15 times in the span of 5 minutes.
Now you're not going to forget.
I am not. I'm definitely not. But every single person they oh, you're the Fullmetal Alchemist. And I was like, roll credits, but all right. Here we are. But look, it's only the first couple episodes, so I'm gonna do a real serious run at this, and I'm gonna watch the whole series, and I'm gonna see where we land. And I'm not promising anybody I'm gonna do an out of frame episode on it, but I feel like if I'm gonna invest that much time, it seems relatively likely that I'll try to do it. I don't know. It's an interesting experiment. I've never really let other people sort of guide that part of the process before. So we'll see how it goes. But that's what I'm doing for the next 5 seasons of watching
Anime.
some show. Anime. Yeah.
It's not a genre.
It's not a genre. I've also been told a lot that it's not a genre.
That was news to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just not that familiar with.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched Dragon Ball Z as a kid. I mean, I watched 10 episodes in a row where they're powering up, and then
this is where I replied to a comment this morning about this actually, and I kind of disagree. Animation is a medium, right? It's an art form, And in all technicality, anime is just the Japanese word for animation. I mean, it's not, there's nothing magic about that part of it. So if we were in Japan, you would use the word anime to describe any animation, from Disney to, Speed Racer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in the United States, like, it's very specific.
Yeah.
And it's some of the things, like I was saying, like some of the things that are sort of stereotypically anime for me, like a lot of exposition, a lot of characters narrating their feelings. I mean, this is the complaint I had with Demon Slayer. I watched a couple episodes of Demon Slayer a few weeks back, and like I just couldn't get into it because it was just, the kid was just announcing his inner monologue the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that in a world where your animation is so bad, like technically bad, that you can't show a lot of things. You have to cut a lot of things for time, and so you end up expositing some stuff that you could have shown. But Demon Slayer was showing everything that he was also talking about. So it's like, show don't tell is a pretty good rule for filmmaking, and just for storytelling in general. I think even in books, by the way. I think it's better to describe a scene or better to describe an experience rather than to have your characters, even in a book, announce, what they are seeing, hearing, feeling, etc. I mean, you should be able to write descriptively in that way. It just doesn't a lot of the time. And it's really consistent. Like, I've seen that across a lot of anime shows that I've seen over a lot of years. Even the ones I like. I mean, even going back to Cowboy Bebop has a little bit of that too, way less than Demon Slayer. It's not like in my face the whole time. But, so stuff like that just kind of, ugh. But it's also why I a little bit disagree that it's not a genre, because it kind of is. At least in the U.S.
Yeah,
is.
definitely.
I don't know. Jen, what are you watching right now?
Oh my goodness. I'm not watching a whole lot. I'm busy.
Yeah.
Oh, The Wire. My husband
wow.
and I started actually watching The Wire on HBO Max.
have.
We
What an
felt like it was
uplifting
a gap. We felt like it was just a significant gap in our viewing history. And so we're almost through with season 1, and every single episode there's always something that we turn to one another and go like, "Hey, you remember pagers? You remember payphones?"
I remember.
You remember 4x3 video
remember.
on your TV?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Because that's kind of how I tried to watch The Wire a few years ago, and I was just like, oh, I got to watch it with like pillar boxing on my TV.
so we talk a lot about technological
Whoa.
innovations that help the human race. I think 16:9 is up there.
Oh, for entertainment, yeah.
It's changed the
Which
world.
is funny because at the same time that happened, everybody started doing vertical video on their phones. I'm like, your eyes aren't vertical. This is a weird thing. Like, your eyes
I don't like it.
are landscape. That's how your eyes work. Like, they see a wide field of vision, not a tall field of vision. Because, the wide field of vision actually matters to you in general, right? Like, you don't need to see what's up there most of the time.
Most of the time.
You can turn your head. It's fine. But like, you need to have a good, like 120, 130 degree field of view. Like, that really helps, right? Maybe more, a little bit if you get into your peripherals, close to 180 in some ways. But like, it's weird. Then everybody put their phones and they're like, oh, I'm holding my phone this way, so I might as well shoot video this way. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So you're saying you guys didn't watch Army of the Dead in portrait mode?
I did
on your
not.
phone?
I did not watch Army of the... Yeah, by the way,
No.
we're talking about Army of the Dead today.
Yeah.
So let's just get into that. Army of the Dead, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's Zack Snyder, written, directed,
Shot by.
cinematographer.
Yeah.
Choices were made, but
Many
the
choices.
basic premise is that the military had a zombie, a super zombie,
Yeah, super zombie, not just a regular zombie.
and got out and took over Las
For
Vegas.
really dumb reasons, but yes.
And so the premise is literally Dawn of the Dead, Ocean's 11.
Put them together.
Put them together. We got a movie.
Alien.
I mean, it's basically aliens, but
Yeah,
it's
Dawn of the Dead and Ocean's 11 told through the story of Alien, I think, is how I would kind of describe this movie.
I mean, you're not wrong there.
Yeah. So I don't know where to begin with this movie. I mean, we can talk about. I mean, so there is obviously some philosophical stuff or some sort of political theory stuff that we can talk about, which I think is sort of relevant to Out of Frame and what we normally talk about there. The movie starts with, the Dave Bautista's character was one of the sort of special. I don't know if he was a special forces guy or whatever he was, but he was a hero.
Drax.
He was Drax. He was a hero of the zombie wars in Vegas. He got a lot of people out. He saved a lot of lives. And then as the government was walling off the city using
shipping
containers, because why not? Why not? Anyway, they walled off the city, but then I guess there were still a bunch of people who, lived on the outskirts of Vegas or whatever else, which they weren't really sure whether or not they were infected. And so they quarantined a whole bunch of people, and they're basically... everybody's worst fear, FEMA camps, and
it's a concentration camp.
It's a concentration camp, and they got a lot of people in there who they're not allowing to leave. But they're also it's also very topical. There's no actual commentary involved, but it's topical in the sense that there's there's guards there that are demanding basically health records, vaccine passport kind of things.
The temperature
gun, and they're like taking everybody's temperature all the time. And, amusingly, it's to see if you're warm enough, not too warm in this case. They want to make sure your temperature hasn't dropped to zombie territories. But, there's a lot of that in it. And, of course, there's a lot of abuse of power inside the camps. I don't know. I mean, Jen, I was trying to remember where I'd seen this guy before, the actor before, but he was Shades in Luke Cage. If you remember.
Oh,
the dude who's in the kind of
that
FEMA
dude.
camp.
He is just great at playing a jerk, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean he did it. I mean he was good in it.
He's a very punchable face.
He's a very punchable. Yeah,
very punchable.
I don't know. He's less punchable in Luke Cage, but he's more like just a bad guy.
Yeah.
And in this case, he's like weak, but lording his power over women mostly.
Classic egotistical bureaucrat that
doesn't got a little bit of power
and takes it a long way.
And so so there's that part of it, but that part of it is not a huge part of the movie. It's also a really inconsistent part of the movie. So the only thing that the camp really does is set up this side character. So the movie's centered around Dave Bautista. It's a character named Scott Ward, I think. But he's got an estranged daughter because he has to have an estranged daughter in this kind of movie. And the estranged daughter works as a volunteer at this camp. And so she's beneficial because she gets them back into the city, into Las Vegas when they need to. And we'll get into all that in a second. But also she has a side story where she is friends with some of the people who are trapped in the city for reasons I'm still not entirely clear about. I think they were trying to sneak out of the camp.
What I think happened is that the coyote took them in because the woman that had the two kids needed to get $5,000 from a slot machine so she could bribe her way out of the camp.
Okay. Yeah. But everybody was leaving the camp anyway.
Well, I think they were just moving them to somewhere else.
To another camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So they could nuke Vegas.
Right. Yeah, so that's basically it. So the premise here, the Ocean's 11 premise is, the government's going to nuke Las Vegas and just try to destroy the zombies once and for all. But before they do, a mysterious figure comes and sees Dave Bautista at the burger joint that he works at for some reason, and which he doesn't seem to like also, by the way, which is odd. And basically offers him, I mean, millions and millions of dollars $200 million basically, in order to go into the city. They're gonna extract money from the vault inside a casino, but he also has an ulterior motive.
But he does, yeah.
But which, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of the plot's very simple, and yet even on like a little bit of review, it still doesn't make any sense.
No.
So I don't know. Like, we're gonna have to spoil some of this stuff.
Spoilers.
So spoilers, but like he's the rich guy, the mysterious figure, sends in with him his head of security to do a side mission, and it's just Paul Reiser.
This Paul Reiser from Alien.
It's just the alien. It's Paul Reiser in Alien. He doesn't really care about in Aliens, I guess it is.
Yeah, Aliens.
Paul Reiser doesn't really, we're just gonna call him Paul Reiser.
Yeah, basically.
He doesn't really care about the money. He cares about extracting one of the zombies' heads so that they can
recreate
a zombie for some reason. Which I don't know why you would do. But also, why would you pay people hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars in order?
Pay them $1 million, say, hey, go get a head.
Go get a head. Yeah. So I don't know why we're being coy about that part of it. Like, other than maybe you think that they're not going to
keep a secret.
They're not going to keep a secret, or they're not going to do it because they don't.
Well, it's a terrible idea.
It is a terrible idea. I mean,
like,
obviously,
the entire justification was that they could create their own zombie army, and it was the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. I'm like, that is the worst idea ever.
Yeah. I mean, and you've seen a microcosm of this idea in Las Vegas, where you have zero control over it, and you have to wall it off and then nuke it. And otherwise, like, if you did that, it would just spread all over the world, just kill everybody. So I don't know why you would want...
Sean, like, the only reason that this hasn't worked before is because nobody as smart as us has tried it. Okay? It's going to work this time. I promise.
Zombie socialism.
Yeah, I'm baffled by the idea of it, because it's like, why? It's a doomsday device. It's not even like a like, I can hold somebody hostage for this. It's scorched earth. There's nothing left if you do this that way. It's not an army you can control. It's not an army that you could, like, set about a particular task. So I don't really know. I don't really get it. And then there's all kinds of other stuff involved, because there are multiple different kinds of zombies in this movie. There's just sort of slow, shambling zombies. Literally call them shamblers.
Yep.
And so you got those kinds of zombies who are kind of, Walking Dead zombies. But then you've got, like, the fast zombies, like the I Am Legend zombies, who are sort of intelligent, or, seem to be intelligent. They can communicate with each other and kind of...
they have a hierarchy.
They've got a social status. I don't know.
They are having babies?
They're somehow having babies, so that happens. There seems to be robotic zombies. I'm not really sure what was going on with the zombies that had...
Yeah, I don't...
robot eyes, or... I don't... The blue eye?
I think that was sentience.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know. There's a lot of this movie that's really baffling to me. And it's like, I've said this a lot. Zack Snyder's not a good writer. And I hate to be that guy about this, but, like, Zack Snyder, whenever he writes his own stories, or whenever he has a major role in the stories, they get really convoluted and really weird. His themes are all over the place. And stuff happens in them for no reason. Really, case in point, again, the daughter goes into she ends up going, because, of course, the dad and the daughter have to be together for this whole movie so they can hash out their various issues, which don't even need to be hashed out, which is funny. And she goes in because she wants to save the life of her friend from the camp, the one who went in to get $5,000 or whatever. For some reason, and again, a lot of my points about any of this is going to come down to, for some reason that I don't really understand, the smart zombies don't kill her. They kidnap her and they put her in a room instead of, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, maybe making more babies.
I think the answer is pretty rapey.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But that's the only answer.
But they didn't explain it.
But they didn't explain it, and that's the only answer that would actually make sense. But in any case, miraculously, against literally all odds, the Dave Bautista's daughter finds her alive and then manages to get her to the helicopter that is supposed to take them outside of the city. They get in the helicopter. Things go horribly awry. The helicopter crashes, and she's just gone.
It disappears.
Just literally disappears.
They show every other dead body.
She's not, we don't see her again. She didn't die in the crash as far as we know. She is not there at all. So like this whole major plot line, at least for this character, I mean, that character's whole motivation for going into the city, the character's whole motivation for basically putting the entire team in danger,
killing her father, killing her own father,
getting her father killed. Yeah.
Just disappears.
She just disappears. Like, I don't get it. Like, there are things with this movie that are just in the writing, in the editing, in the production.
So I
don't get it.
I think, from my vantage point, I think the biggest reason why this movie doesn't work, because there's a premise.
It's a neat premise.
You got zombies, you got Ocean's 11.
Yeah, and the intro to this movie.
Great. Just watch that.
Great.
It's hilarious.
Great scenes
really
of
good.
like Vegas being taken over by zombies, and it's hilarious, and
it's Zack Snyder at his best.
Absolutely. Yes.
But I think why this movie doesn't work is it just comes down to who's paying the money. Netflix. And I've said before on the show, I'm not a particularly big fan of Netflix, but this movie cost $90 million to make, budget wise.
And it looks like way more than that.
He did a great job of working. It looks good. But when I say I think the problem with Netflix is this is a detriment, and also on the other, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. Netflix basically said, Zack Snyder, do whatever you want with this, and hands off, which is great in some places. And I'm assuming that's what Zack Snyder want coming off of the debacle with Warner Brothers.
Of course.
But there obviously was no oversight. There was no constraints.
Yeah.
This movie was 2.5 hours long when it could have been an hour and 45, and easily. There was a minute and a half long scene where Paul Reiser gets mauled by the zombie tiger when it's just the same scene as in Aliens. Just have him kill and go on. And there's scenes like that throughout the movie. And
that was one of my big complaints too. Like, this movie would have been a lot scarier if they'd shown a lot less of what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. So I'll give you a really good example of this, I think. So there's a scene in the film where, again, for some reason, zombies are hibernating. I don't know why zombies hibernate, but these ones were hibernating, and they're all in a dark, warehousey kind of space, and there's a bunch of zombies, and the goal is get this entire team of 7 people or whatever through the hibernating zombies without waking any of them up. So we're told the rules, right? The rules are, some of the rules are obvious. Don't make a lot of noise. Don't attract attention to yourself. Don't shine any lights into their eyes, whatever. So don't do anything really, and then kind of crawl down on the floor and work your way quietly and carefully through the thing. So Dave Bautista goes first. He drops alien, just alien again, where we're dropping, instead of dropping, road flares or whatever, we're dropping little glow sticks or whatever. But he's setting a path. Everybody's going through, except for it's zombies instead of spore eggs or whatever, and with face huggers in them. And okay, so Dave Bautista goes through, and then this scene, first of all, takes forever, but there's no suspense to it at all. Because, actually, I'm not entirely sure why. There should have been a ton of suspense to that scene, except for I just knew what was going to happen the entire way through. Because obviously, Paul Reiser, for no reason, decides to get in a fight with one of the other members of the team, sort of a, red shirt, basically, like we don't care about. She's basically like the entourage of a YouTuber who they bring into all of this, which is also strange. She gets into a little fight with Paul Reiser, and then suddenly he's like sending her off in the wrong direction. He's like trying to trick her into going where there's too many zombies and she can't
Kill her.
get through it, and they're going to kill her. But again, this is the kind of thing that you just go, first of all, this took forever. This scene lasted a long, long time. And we all knew it was going to happen right from the very beginning. But then it's also the dumbest idea on the planet, because you're in the room.
Yep.
You are in the room with these zombies. So you too will be in danger. Everybody else will be in danger. If you do this, you are going to not only hurt her for no good reason, because you could just be chill and resolve the situation and still proceed with your mission. She doesn't know his mission. There's nothing about, like, she's just mad for no reason. So, fine. But then he sets off all this stuff. She should be dead. Then she's not dead. So the scene continues even further so that we can see the death scene in a hallway, and we can see that nobody's helping her. So we've gone from, like, there's so many things about this to me that, like, are just stretched out beyond belief. Because first of all, you get a long sequence of them sneaking through the thing. Then you've got a long sequence of her going the wrong way. And then instead of her getting mauled and killed by the zombies there, and then him coming out just going, I don't know, she was right behind me, who knows? She busts through a window. And then the rest of the team, who could absolutely help her and save her from these zombies, just stares as she has an extended death scene.
Yeah.
In a well-lit hall.
I think it's a
why?
it's a Netflix problem. I mean, they're stated their competition is sleep, and this is a constant problem I have with Netflix properties, is that they are just way too long. Yeah. They take TV shows that should be 30 minutes and they're an hour.
Yeah.
You take movies that should be an hour and a half and they're now 2.5 hours, and it's a constant problem. And they have a ton of money. Maybe I'm just a Netflix hater, but they have a ton of money and they can literally do whatever they want at this point, but they're losing market share pretty quickly, and they haven't made a huge hit in a while now.
That is true. A lot of the new movies I've seen from Netflix have been kind of in this territory for me. It's like, not good.
I think the last thing is Bridgerton. That's the last thing I've enjoyed from Netflix.
Which I didn't watch. Jen, did you watch Bridgerton?
She hated it.
Yeah, and I didn't like it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you hated it. Yeah.
The only thing I could think of on the horizon that I'm actually interested in watching on Netflix and will make me click on Netflix is Stranger Things. But they will release that in a weekend, and then I will never go back to Netflix.
There are a few shows on Netflix. Witcher Season 2 theoretically is coming back. Lock and Key should be coming back at some point. Stranger Things. But they are shows, first of all, and they're all kind of fantasy shows, which Netflix has done okay on some of those. But yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, I'll binge through Stranger Things or whatever in a weekend or whatever, and then
meanwhile, you got Disney over here releasing one episode at a time, and I'm going back week after week. Oh,
yeah,
they have that. I guess I'll watch that.
Although, to be fair, I have not gone to. Well, I guess this isn't on Disney. I guess it's on Hulu. I haven't done the MODOK show that Marvel's been trying to, like, drip out all of these shows, but I haven't watched MODOK yet at all. I don't know. To some extent, I didn't realize it was going to be animated, first of all. So it kind of needs to be. Like, I don't know how you do. It's a bizarre. MODOK is, I think I'm getting this right. This is just from memory, by the way. I didn't look any of this up. But mechanized organism designed only for killing, I believe is what MODOK stands for. It's bizarre. It's
pretty straightforward.
Premise. It's like you remember Kang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, had the brain inside the dude. MODOK's kind of like that. Like he's a weird brain guy inside a thing.
Fun.
He's a bad guy.
I think Marvel's going to have some issues.
I think Marvel's going to have some issues too. not to like get wildly off topic, but I did watch the Eternals trailer that just came out. It's kind of boring. There's not a lot there.
I'm excited for the movie. I cannot remember
Like the Shang-Chi one?
Shang-Chi, only because Awkwafina's in it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that too.
Other than that, I don't really.
So actually, this is another thing. I did actually go back and watch Nora from Queens recently, and she's hilarious. Because she is. So there's that. But I don't know, man. Army of the Dead. There's so many other problems with this movie too. I mean, we didn't even get into some of the technical stuff like dead pixels, the shallow depth of field. I mean, like what? It's not in focus. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, anybody you've seen on YouTube who's talked about this has talked about these things. But like, come on, like this is it's supposed to be a pro filmmaking, outfit here, and it's just.
I think the positive side from this is if Zack Snyder can make a terrible looking $100 million film, you too can use your iPhone and make something just as good. Just light it well. It doesn't like he used lenses that are 60 years old, 50 years roughly from eBay. Now
he had them rehoused.
Yes,
he did spend probably hundreds of thousands of dollars having Canon
way too much money
like redo the housings of these things. But but actually that said, that's a good side lesson too. I mean, if you guys aren't aware of this, I mean, like the filmmaking technology has dropped in price dramatically over the last several years, and this is all, I mean, people talk about globalism and all that kind of stuff, and I see this all the time now of people like talking about nationalism as economic nationalism, especially as if it's this great idea, but like it is not. No. It is not at all. The reason we have so many of these kinds of tools available for so cheap is precisely because we've got the entire world to trade with now. We don't just have to go with whoever's in our town or in our country or whatever. It's made all this stuff crazy, crazy inexpensive to the point where there's 70-year-old glass available from different parts of the world on eBay that you can get for a few $100s in some cases.
And then make a terrible movie. I love a good director of photography, but with technology and stuff like that, going the way it is, spend your time on gaffing and writing.
Well, and writing. Look, the writing thing for me, I think, and Jen, you should chime in on this too. I think the writing part of this, it's the most important part for me because there are so many logical problems in the script. There's so many plot problems in the script. There's so many characters that they're unmotivated or that do things for no reason. Pages upon pages of content that doesn't make sense or doesn't need to be there. And if you focus your efforts on that, I think I would say this, even if anybody cares, wants advice as a young filmmaker or something, like learn how to write.
Yep.
And learn and be real cognizant of the fact that you're going to write something for people to act in. You're going to have to pay for it. All of those things are going to happen. So be thoughtful about how you're writing. Like, don't necessarily write, if you can't afford it, don't write, Las Vegas, like dystopian Las Vegas. Write something for
small town bank,
right? Like there are ways to do this kind of stuff. But I guarantee you, if this story was better written and it was a heist story about a small town bank with zombies, and you did it on $50,000 instead of, $90 million, it'd be a better movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%. It doesn't matter how cool your VFX look. If your story is garbage and I don't care about your characters, it's a bad movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. So last weekend I was running some workshops for a film. It's a nonprofit in our network that does film production training for people. And Jen was there actually, but which was nice to see Jen in person. But then afterwards I was talking to one of the other guys who was doing another workshop. I was running a workshop on how to use DSLRs, really mirrorless cameras, to make films and to do video production. And a buddy of mine was running a parallel session on how to use RED cameras and the RED system for video production. We don't generally use REDs. We use mostly Sony kind of stuff, and we use FS5s and 7s and that kind of stuff. But, I've been around a lot of those kinds of things over the years. And anyway, like I was talking to my buddy about this, and he's a great cinematographer and like actually makes his living as a cinematographer. And we were talking about some movies where he just loves the cinematography, but the story is terrible. And there are a lot like that. And I brought up an example that I'd seen a few years ago called Mr. Turner, which is about J.M.W. Turner, the painter. I don't know if you guys even heard of this movie or saw it. This movie, it stars Timothy Spall, and it's about a character, a real life person, this painter, who is just an awful human being. There's just nothing like I found him to be like everything from being just a terrible person to also being an unhygienic person to just being like there's just nothing about his character that would be like endearing or make me want to be around him or like him in any way, shape, or form. And the movie is a slog to get through, in part because of that, also in part because it's kind of Oscar bait and it's meant to be, it's kind of slow and everything else. But here's the thing. Bill Pope shot the movie, and he shot it on seaside, basically where Turner used to do paintings. He did landscapes of seaports in England in the late 1800s and I think early 1900s. I think I'm right about that. It's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. Like, Bill Pope he used almost entirely natural light. He was going out there for like 20 minutes at a time, capturing, magic hour. It's gorgeous. Like, this is one of the greatest bits of cinematography I've seen in years and years and years. And I hate the movie. And it's like, those are the kinds of things you got to think about as a filmmaker sometimes. It's like, yeah, okay, you've got one piece of this that is just absolutely spectacular. And by the way, Army of the Dead doesn't have any piece that is absolutely spectacular. But the story was, again, and even in Mr. Turner, by the way, I want to say the story wasn't poorly written. I just hated the guy. Like, I didn't want to be around the people in the movie at all. And so, yeah, there's a point at which no matter how good your cinematography is, no matter how good your lighting is, no matter how good your sound is or your music or anything else, you just got to go, the story and the characters. That's the core.
That's what it comes down to.
Of this. Oh, man.
And that's also where you have to start. You can't just start with this really cool visual in your head and then build an entire movie around it. That's not how any of this works. You have to start with a good story and then figure out how you can execute on it.
Yep. Yeah. And so I do want to go back, before we wrap this part up, I do want to go back to the FEMA stuff, because it is a little bit of like, this is kind of what we're here for to some extent. There's just not a lot of it. So it was kind of hard to like make that a big central focus of the conversation, especially it doesn't dwarf the filmmaking problems. But like, it felt like Sean Spicer's in the movie for a second on the news. And so some of it felt like it was a critique of Trump, but like also some of it felt like it was a critique of the idea of vaccine passports.
Right.
And like the kind of power grab. And didn't you mentioned, I didn't catch it, but like something about the Constitution doesn't apply.
Yeah, there was a sign going into the quarantine zone that the Constitution is not in effect for quarantine area.
Yeah. So on the one hand, it's like Zack Snyder's sort of nudging in kind of a libertarian direction where he's talking about like violations of rights. But then on the other hand, you got Sean Spicer and you've got people talking about nuking the Vegas on the 4th of July and whatever. And it's
Sean Spicer was being pro-fascist position.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it was pretty libertarian.
Maybe all of the above, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. It's like I didn't quite know where he was trying to go. Because my point is, like, obviously, like the FEMA camps and stuff like that was always a fear that conservatives had.
Yeah.
That it was going to be, liberals imposing these kinds of camps.
I
don't know. It's just kind of weird.
For some I thought that was the opening scene, and those little tidbits to me were the most interesting parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And I thought he did a pretty good job on that. It's just the other 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say 15, but you're probably right. Probably it's like 2 and 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
know.
was real excited right up until the actual like story started, and then nope, this is bad.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the vaccine passports are an interesting thing to me because there was a brief moment where I think I was seeing like kind of a lot of support for that. I think it's flipped already though.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I moved, so I live in a different kind of area, and where I came from, I think there was probably a lot of support for that kind of stuff. But I moved out to a more rural area, and I'll tell you, we don't wear masks anymore at all. Like it's just done. Like everybody's in stores, restaurants, whatever. Employees sometimes do. That's still sometimes part of their policies, but for for customers or whatever, it's just not a thing.
There was close to a full house. I was watching an NBA game last night. Close to a full house for a basketball game in New York City.
Yeah.
So, I think.
Yeah.
We're probably on the other side of this thing.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Like where I live, it's pretty laissez-faire just anyway. But I also have family out of the country, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So pretty much everywhere that is not the United States is very enthusiastic about masks and vaccine passports. And like you have to prove you're healthy, and you have to have a good excuse to be out of your house and all that good stuff. So it's wild out there.
Yeah, I worry about that because travel becomes an issue.
I think I'm a little less so. Just
travel and trade.
Yeah, I think the United States, for all the crap we get internationally from people that say that the United States is this, that, and the other, pretty much everyone follows our lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we have the most money. I mean, there's reasons why, but culturally, everything. So I'm a little less concerned. Unless there's going to be, I don't foresee a huge spike in anything in the next. So if we're wide open, and we're headed that way, then it's going to be harder and harder for these people to say, and this is the right way to do things. And also, they want our cash. If you're going to require Americans to go to your country and have a vaccine pet, that ain't happening.
Yeah, I think kind of cynically, and I've been talking about this for well over a year. I mean, we talked about it a lot on Out of Frame actually, but like, a lot of what's happened over the last year has been driven by media, and it's been driven by fear that has been caused, I think, and fomented really by the news trying to make the biggest, scariest things out of every aspect of this, to a point where, by the way, some of these things, like, I'm very frustrated by. I've got a friend who, I'll leave his name out of this, but he's a fairly successful guy who has been an entrepreneur in the healthcare space. Actually, he's an extremely smart person. He is an extremely thoughtful and careful person. And about a year and a half ago, when people were talking about where coronavirus came from, he didn't take a position on whether or not it was from a lab or from wet markets or from whatever. But he wrote a post on Facebook a year and a half ago, and he always writes like super long, very well researched kind of posts. And again, this is a guy who's in the healthcare business, and he wrote a post saying like there's just not enough evidence to rule out whether or not it would be in a lab or somewhere else. He wrote that a year and a half ago. Facebook blocked his post, deleted his post off his thing, gave him a warning, all that kind of stuff, said it was misinformation because they're, PolitiFact fact checker.
At the time, we didn't have this information.
Right. But the funny thing is, what he was saying is you don't have the information. He's saying you don't have nearly enough to rule out one way or another. So it would be silly to definitively say and fact check that this didn't happen or that it did. Either way, he was taking an agnostic position, but he said that anybody who says that there is enough information available, there isn't. So your PolitiFact fact checker is making a call that they don't have the information for. And then Facebook took that, and YouTube and everybody else. I mean, so much of this stuff was shut down by social media companies, which a year later, now we have to go back and rescind all of these things. Whoops. Well, maybe that was true, or maybe that wasn't true, or maybe a year ago you guys were tipping the scales on stuff. And so so my cynical point, though, which is kind of amusing, is that like a lot of that had, for better or worse, had to do with hating Trump and not wanting Trump to be in office and everything else. And so everything that we could do to make Trump seem the worst, that's the way that the scales were tipped. Well, the scales are still being tipped, but now they're being tipped kind of the other way. So instead of talking about nightly death tolls and instead of talking about all that kind of stuff, we're talking about vaccine distribution. We're talking about all of these other things. Some of that might have been the same, maybe. I don't think very much. But I think it's interesting that the flip happened the way that it did, where once we were talking about the scariest things, and now we're saying, hey, don't worry about it. You should totally get the vaccines, and you should do all of these things. Perfectly safe. Don't worry about, everything is great. And that's kind of the messaging now.
Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome now. So, and by the way, if you're high risk or whatever, you should probably get vaccinated, and they do seem to be pretty safe and everything. And I'm not saying anything about that, but like the news has shifted dramatically.
I wonder what happened. I don't.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's impossible to know.
I have no idea.
But my point, though, is just that, like, I do think, and to your point, like, people are going to take our lead, but I think part of it is just perception.
Yep. And
so the more people think that, everybody's going to die, the more things like vaccine passports and, FEMA camps, whatever, like, the more people think that that's the right way to handle this kind of stuff. But the more people think, oh, you know what? It seems fine. It seems like we're okay. The less support there is for this. So it's a trade-off that like the news kind of dominates a lot, but which they've kind of chosen a path. And I think it's kind of coming down as a result.
Yeah.
Could have done that a year ago, of course, or close to it. But
well, the circumstances have changed.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, Army of the Dead. Let's wrap this up. It's on Netflix, so hey, hooray! If you already have Netflix, you can watch it. But
there's going to be more. They're apparently a prequel and an anime.
Yeah,
is in the works. Is already in the works.
They probably shouldn't.
Possibly a sequel.
Although, look, if they did a prequel, I'd support a prequel if it was how Las Vegas got overrun by zombies. And
that should have been just the entire movie.
That should have been the entire movie. No, it really should. It should have been. See, that actually would be. It's a simple. It's not simple, really, but it's a small narrative change. Instead of after the zombies take over, have the heist during the zombies.
Like you're already doing Ocean's 11, and then a zombie apocalypse happens.
Exactly.
And wow, that's the twist.
But then it's Shaun of the Dead, and which by the way, and maybe I'll just make a plug here. You want to see great zombies in real life, kind of like normal people dealing with zombies movie? Shaun of the Dead. There you go.
It's a good one.
Edgar Wright. Plus
100%.
Edgar Wright's got a new movie coming out soon too. So, watch that before you watch Edgar Wright's whatever the new project he's got going on. So, yeah. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Jen, final thoughts on Army of the Dead.
It's 2.5 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back. I should have just gone to bed.
Well, you had to do this, Paul.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I really enjoyed was the zombie takeover of Vegas. So if you had to watch some zombie gore, watch that 5 minutes, but then just flip on over to HBO Max.
All right, I agree. Not great. Probably not really worth it for the most part. I think again, you got it already. You might do it if you're in the mood for brainless Ha!
Hey.
Hey, brainless
Hey.
fun. Yeah. All right. So that is it for this part of the episode. For everybody who is a supporter of the show on Patreon or Subscribestar, which of course you can get to at patreon.com/outoframeshow or subscribestar.com/outoframeshow. Stick around and we are going to answer some more burning viewer questions. For everybody else, if you guys aren't subscribed on YouTube, please check us out on YouTube. Please check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. What am I missing, Paul?
Email newsletter.
Email newsletter, yeah. We just have a new email newsletter that we were supposed to talk about at the beginning of this show and didn't.
Next week.
But next week, got a brand new email newsletter. We've had a lot of issues with YouTube, sort of, either demonetizing content or age restricting content and things like that. And we're doing our best to like kind of find ways around that or make sure that doesn't happen. But like at the same time, one of those ways is we've started an email newsletter so that, if you guys sign up, you'll get, episodes when they drop. You'll also get, news items that we think are interesting, little clips from older episodes, all kinds of cool stuff that we're going to do with the newsletter. Yep. So definitely go to, I believe it's just fee.org/OOF-newsletter. Mm-hmm. I believe that's the one. So check that out. For our supporters, stick around and we will be right back. For everybody else, thank you so much for watching.